Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea. I'm a program manager at Plotly, and today I'm going to be talking about a variety of our enterprise tools. So many of you are probably familiar with Dash, and for those of you who are new to Dash, it's our open source Pythonic framework for building web applications. So while Dash is open source, today's discussion will be focused around our enterprise products and tools that we've designed specifically for teams working with Dash. And basically the goal will be to demonstrate a few ways in which you and your team can leverage these tools and go from an exploration stage to easily deploying your production-ready applications in a shareable manner. So we'll be discussing the deployment process for any type of application you're working on. It's going to be the same, whether you're doing a dashboard, report, or a general application. So we'll discuss a little bit of that now. So the first thing we're going to look at is our Dash deployment server, and we refer to this as DDS. So down here, you should be able to see my screen. And basically, we will start with the portal. So when you are using our Dash deployment server, you'll get your own server where you can deploy all your applications as a team. And if you choose to add your application to the portal, it will be displayed here. So this would be kind of when your application's at a state where you're ready to share it. So this is going to be completely customizable. You can update the colors, add your logo, as well as a description of what you want your portal to be. And then we'll start here over with the individual applications. So right now you'll notice that I am logged out, and so all of these apps we're seeing here have been set to unauthenticated, meaning that anyone will be able to kind of view this when you're viewing the portal. So you can hover to open the applications, or you can click here and this will bring up a bit more information. So here you'll be able to see the thumbnail that you can add, as well as the title, any tags that have been added, a brief description, and you're able to add a contact as well. And then, of course, the sharing is listed there. So whether your app is unauthenticated, authenticated, or restricted. So I'm going to go ahead now and log in. And upon logging in, we'll be able to see the difference between having the, having the unauthenticated versus authenticated setting there. So you'll notice before, when I wasn't logged in, we were seeing only 4 applications, and now that I'm logged in, I get to see the 5th authenticated application here. So we can also search here. And so basically, this will search through the titles or tags that have been added to the applications in order for you to find what you're looking for a little more easily. Would imagine working on a team, you may have many people adding their applications here. So the search will come in really handy when you have to go through multiple applications that have been added by different developers there. So from the portal, we're able to view the app manager setting. So if I select this drop down here, I can check out the app manager. And now what this is going to do is bring me to the setting where I'll be able to see just the apps that my account has deployed. So from here, I only have one deployed right now, but I'm going to go ahead and walk us through the deployment process. So the first thing you'll want to do when deploying one of your applications would be to initialize the app. So I'm just going to call this one Webinar Demo. We can go ahead and create that. So now that I've gotten started creating this, this application, you'll see now we're going to display a few instructions so that you can easily get set up. So here we have the instructions to deploy a new application, which will basically walk you through initializing your Git repository. And we offer the option here to clone our sample app. So that can easily be done by running this git clone command in your terminal. And what that's going to do is clone our Dash on-premise sample app. So this is a pretty simple application that we recommend users get started with. And first, I'll walk through the files that are available there. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at what the application actually looks like, and then we'll do the deployment. So looking at the files, for those of you who are familiar with Dash, you're probably pretty familiar with the app.py file. So this is just the Python file where we're going to have the core of the application. First, we'll have the imports, initializing the app, and then just the simple layout code to add a header, and then the body, which is going to include a drop-down and then a graph. You can see the graph data here. And we have our app.run server, and that's pretty much it. So there's we go a lot more in depth into the core of Dash in our documentation, and we also have some previous webinars on Dash as well. So we can post some links for those of you who aren't super familiar with Dash itself. Great. So in addition to having your app code, you'll also need a few additional files in order to do the deployment. So here we have the proc file where we're just defining the server there and then setting the number of workers. And then we'll have a runtime.txt as well, and this will set the version of Python we want to use. So you can set that to any version 2 or 3 that you're interested in working with. And this will be done on a per app basis. So if you have some applications that you're using Python 2 for some reason and some that are using Python 3, that's no problem. Each of those are set individually in the runtime.txt file in your application repo. And similarly, we'll also have a requirement.txt file in each app directory, and this is going to set up the versions of Dash that we're using, and then also any other Python packages that may be used. So when we're deploying the application, we're going to be deploying the code in an individual Docker container. Each app gets deployed in its own Docker container, and therefore the requirement.txt and runtime.txt files are pretty important because that sets the stage for the environment that your application is running in. Great. So that's going to be the main files that you need in your repository. So like I said, we recommend that new users clone this and test out deploying with this code. So now if I come back here, we'll be able to continue going through the directions. So I'm going to split the screen now so we can look at the directions and the terminal at the same time, so we can do this simultaneously. Okay. So here I've gone ahead and cloned that repository. So dash on-premise sample app will look at, we'll abbreviate that as JOPSA every now and then. And so now we can go through and actually do the deployment. So I'll consider this an existing app. So all I'll need to do is add a remote, and then I'll do a push as well. So we can copy this code exactly. And this will add a remote on the server, and it's going to have my app name, webinar demo. And now if I do git remote -v, I'll be able to see all my remotes. So I have my github.com origin. You can remove that if you'd like. And then I also have my Plotly remote, which is what I'm going to be pushing to for the deployment process. And so now the deployment is as simple as doing a git push and to Plotly master, because we're on the master branch right now. I'll go ahead and copy that in. And so now the deployment process will take a few minutes. And basically what this is going to do is we're kind of harnessing the power of Doku, which is a platform as a service and does a Heroku-like deployment. So our application can get deployed, as I mentioned, in the Docker container, and then it will be available on a URL on your server, and you'll have easy access to share that with your colleagues via sharing the URL with them directly, or adding them in via the Dash deployment server interface, which we'll take a look at after our app is deployed. And I'll just quickly go ahead and while this is deploying, I'm going to post the link for the GitHub repo into the chat. And I'll post the link to the Dash docs as well that I mentioned earlier, so you guys have access to that. All right. Okay. So, yep, now our deployment process is finished. And going to go back to full screen here because we're not going to need the terminal just at this moment. And we'll go ahead and open the app and take a look at that. Okay. We'll just give that 1 second to load. I think I'm going to go ahead and just double check that I had an up-to-date requirements in there. So I'm going to go ahead and update the requirements.txt a bit. We're now going to be using version 40 of Dash, and we can run this locally as well. And just make sure it's working locally. And then I'll double check the deployment. Okay. So first, just running python app.py will run that app locally for you. Just a tiny bit slow here. So we can see what our app looks like here. And so now I'm just going to want to update that requirements.txt on the deployed version as well. So to do an update on your deploy, you can do git add. I just want to update the requirements.txt. And then again, I'll do that push command again, git push plotly master. And we'll send that update. So while we're updating the requirements.txt for this, we'll also be able to kind of go through the settings that are available in the Dash deployment server user interface. So here we'll see you have the option to add in environmental variables if necessary for your deployment and application. So any passwords that you don't want to put directly in your app code, user credentials, anything like that, it's helpful to add that in via the interface. It's a little more secure than including that in your code directly. You also have the option of linking to a Redis database. So we run the Redis, if you add a Redis database on your server, that's run in an individual Docker container as well. And then linked to your application. And that can all be done here during the UI. And we'll take a look shortly at an example using that database connection. We also have directory mappings if you'd like to map a directory on your server into your application. So if you have many applications that are sharing a data source, that can be very useful. And then finally, we'll get to the privacy settings. So by default, we deploy as restricted, but you may want to make the app authenticated or unauthenticated. So restricted means that only the app owner will be able to see that by default. You also have the option of adding viewers. So you can add the users there via username, or if you have a LDAP or AD integration, you'd be able to add LDAP groups. So you could give permission to full groups at once. And then finally, you have the option of displaying the app in the portal. So once your app is production ready, you can go ahead, add it to the portal, and once you select to add it to the portal, you'll be able to add information as well, such as the image, the title, description, contact information, and the tags. So I'm not going to add this one to the portal just yet because it's not production ready. And I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. And yep, I just had to update the requirements.txt. So now we have our webinar demo application deployed on the server. And it has all of the interactivity that we had added in the code. And we're all set to update the privacy, add viewers, or make it unauthenticated, and then share it via this URL. Great. So now that we've done a simple deployment process with the Dash deployment server, I'll go ahead and talk about some of the other tools that we've added in addition to the deployment server that will help you and your teams get up and running a bit faster. So if any of you are familiar with Dash, you may notice that it takes a good amount of time to develop the layout of your application as well as the CSS. So though we tried to make the framework extremely friendly for Python users, since it is a web application and we wanted it to be customizable, of course you'll have to add a bit of CSS if you want any customizations done there. In order to try and take some of the load off of Dash developers, we've developed a new product called Dash Design Kit. And the idea of this is just to kind of provide some components that make styling a little easier. So we have headers and sidebars, as well as cards and blocks, which will help you form the layout of your application a little bit better. And then we've also taken some of the burden off of the CSS styling by giving you the option to use this theme editor. So even the docs have the theme editor applied. So I'll just quickly show you what that will look like. If you open up the theme editor, this is a graphical user interface which allows you to select either preset themes or specific colors for your overall application, as well as the graphs in the application, and then update the typography as well. So just selecting full themes there, you'll see you have the option of updating your entire application with just the click of a button. And yep, and before we hop out of here, I'll just show the templating aspect, and then we'll take a look at putting this together in an application. So yep. So basically the idea was, instead of writing all of your content in HTML divs and then using Flexbox or different widths and heights and trying to make that mobile friendly, we've kind of abstracted all of that functionality away for you with the creation of card and block components. So basically, we're just trying to make arrangement a little easier, and we've applied some default padding and margins to these card components just to try and make everything look and fit a little bit better for you. So we can take a look. Whoops. At applying this to a actual application. So if we look at our oil and gas application, this is one of the applications that we have hosted in the gallery in our documentation. And now we have Dash Design Kit applied, so it was a lot easier to set up the controls in an organized manner using the control cards, as well as add things like data cards and better graph defaults as well. And once this loads, I can just show what that looks like when we change the theme on the entire application. But just using our preset themes, we'll be able to see the entire application get updated. Things running a little slowly for me with the screen share on. But just to demonstrate, with the selection of a theme, everything gets updated simultaneously. All right, so the last thing that I'll quickly discuss is a final tool that we've been working on for doing what we call snapshots. So when you're working on a dashboard or an application, you may have the need to periodically save that save a snapshot of that application. So what we've created here is an easy way for you to make your application and then be able to create a snapshot. So what that does is it's just going to capture everything that's in the application. So for example, if I add another trace to the bar graph, I could update the bottom graph here and only display the new users on my visits per day chart. And then I can enter title here, and finally add a summary. So just doing America. Now I have the option of creating the snapshot. And this is going to bring us to the archive view of this application. And now in the archive, we have a saved of all of the snapshots that we've saved. So we see the titles, the author, the date it's created, and then we have a link to the web version as well as the PDF version. So can just show you what that looks like. So the web report, again, is a snapshot of what that data looked like on at the time of taking the snapshot. But now it doesn't have the controls to do any of the updates, though it is still completely interactive there. Great. And then we'll try and make these printable as well. In case you need to print them, you can apply different CSS and styling to the PDF version versus the web version, and little tricks like that to make them more usable and more suited for all members of your team. Great. So I think that's going to pretty much bring us to the end there, because I'm kind of hitting my time limit now. But we might have time for one or two questions. If anyone has anything to ask. Can go through.
All zeros. Some will give us a range. Some might give us
Yep, I think everything's pretty much been. Oh, that's a good question. Is it no longer recommended to have dash core components in the requirements.txt? If you want to set a specific dash core components version in your requirements.txt, that's possible. But I'll just try and pull up the dash changelog. We've recently bundled dash render, dash core components, and dash HTML components. So let me just double check this. So now the versions will all get installed together, and there's no need to add the individual versions there in your requirements.txt. Those will all get installed together. Yep. Dash table, though, however, you will install that. You'll add that separately and import it separately as well. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. And yep, the broadcast will be available as pretty much as soon as we wrap up here. So should be all good. Thanks.